Hello there, friends. Might be looking at the background being like, why is there Iron Man memorabilia in the background? I'm a little bit confused. Well, this is for a different video. I'm not changing my setup for this political video. This is for my geek-related channel, my non-political channel. For March 1st, National Iron Man Day. But, yeah, you're here to listen to me talk about Joe Biden. And surprisingly, I'm giving him credit. Whoa, crazy. Yeah, he came out with a statement yesterday, February 28th, 2021, being pro-union. It was a national statement. Granted, he didn't explicitly talk about Amazon. However, it is heavily implied that it's affiliated with what's going on with workers voting on having a union. Amazon workers having a union down in Amazon. In Alabama for Amazon. There we go. So, on his Twitter feed, I'm going to put everything in the link in the description. Under President Biden, he says, workers in Alabama and all across America are voting on whether to organize a union in their workplace. It's a vitally important choice, one that should be made without intimidation or threats by employers. Every worker should have a free and fair choice to join a union. Could have been written by Bernie Sanders, as far as I'm concerned. I'm actually surprised that he came out as being pro-union, especially with all his backing. But him having the balls, I mean, he's the president of the United States, and he's at the height of his popularity, so that makes sense. But him saying, yeah, I'm pro-union, and workers should have that choice, you're protected under the law, is very important. Now, in some of the content of the video, I do recommend watching the whole video, which again will be provided down in the description. He says, quote, there should be no intimidation, no coercion, no threats, no anti-union propaganda. No supervisor should confront employees about their union preferences. You know, every worker should have a free and fair choice to join a union. The law guarantees that choice. It's your right, not that of your employer. It's your right. No employer can take that right away. So make your voice heard. Unquote. Yeah, I completely agree. You are protected under the law if you want a union. There shouldn't be that coercion, because you have companies like Amazon and Walmart that will say like, oh, you don't need to be pro-union because we're a family. We're a family. And unions might take away that family, which is just complete bogus nonsense. It's just nonsense. And I'm also speaking from my perspective because I work for an organization and am represented by a union. And my union does a really good job in representing me as a worker. I'm pretty pro-union, anecdotally speaking, but unions have been shown empirically in other countries, especially like Nordic countries and countries in Europe, to be very beneficial to the worker and working families. Giving them... because unions are able to negotiate. Unions as a collective, are able to negotiate with employers better than someone trying to get a job. Like, there's this right-wing myth of being like, hey, if you go to the employer and you can negotiate your wages with them, and then you should be able to come on top. But it leaves out the details of the workplace's offering a job, and they can still say no to those negotiations, as opposed to a union that says, hey, whoever you hire has to have this as the minimum. And usually it's above standards of the law. So, yes, I'm very pro-union. I'm very happy Joe Biden came out saying this. Granted, there is obviously more to be done, but I have to give him credit where it's due. He's at the height of his popularity. I don't know if he'll ever have popularity this high in the future. I'm very skeptical of it. However, him saying this now can influence those workers in Alabama who are actively fighting to have a union, and hopefully leave a little bit of an intimidation factor toward Amazon, who is very much anti-union. Goes without being said. So him able to influence those workers and say like, hey, if you vote for a union, there legally cannot be consequence to you. It might motivate more people to be for a union, especially as Amazon has been having a lot more anti-union propaganda. It's very cringe. like, well, anyway, what else could President Biden do? So, according to NPR, excuse me, back in his campaign, he was very supportive of the Democrats and the PRO Act. So I'm going to quote NPR here. Quote, Biden has also backed Democrats' plans for labor law reform in the far-reaching protecting the right to, or I'm going to start again. I'm not going to edit this out. Biden has also backed Democrats' plans for labor law reform in the far-reaching Protecting the Right to Organize Act, or the PRO Act. The proposal, which passed the House last year and which Democrat lawmakers hope to pursue again this year, would amend the country's decades-old labor laws to give workers more power to organize and penalize the companies who retaliate against those efforts, among several other significant changes. And assuming that he really advertises this and pushes it in the Senate, there's a high chance it could go through. And Joe Biden has a lot of influence right now. I mean, the only person I'd be worried about voting against it would be Joe Manchin. But like I said, Joe Biden's at his height of popularity. So if he really wanted to, he could be like, hey, Joe Manchin, you want to be reelected? Because if you don't vote for this, I will go after you. I will primary you in your own state. Do it. There's no reason it couldn't pass now. It was blocked in the Senate before the election because Mitch McConnell is an absolute blocker after he goes in his turtle shell. So I hope this goes through. Just to continue on reading, quote, Biden's support of the organizing drive is in stark contrast to his predecessor, former President Donald Trump. Trump aligned himself with businesses and employers and strongly opposed Democratic labor policies, including the PRO Act, unquote. So I'm really hoping something comes about this because this is good on its own. Is there stuff to be criticized? Could it be pushed further? Absolutely. But got to give Biden credit where it's due. Praise him just a little bit. It could go a long way. Because this is in Alabama where unions aren't nearly as recognized, not as well liked. And you have about, 6,000 people on the streets? Let me see. There's an article from Newsweek, and it's titled, Biden warns Amazon to keep hands off of union drive. Well, he doesn't explicitly say Amazon. Anyway, to keep hands off union drive, draws cheers from workers. This is wonderful. Because a push for this, this is one small step, but only it's a giant leap to more union representation in the United States. Because, like I said, unions are overall a good thing. There have been corrupt unions. It's as it goes, but generally speaking, unions are beneficial to the American people. So, my man Joe, of whom I don't really like, because this is the one promise that he's actually keeping among others, a stimulus plan finally passing. I think it just passed through the House, actually. And, wiping away student debt, or at least part of it. Not keeping those promises, but actually being for unions. Okay, man, I'll give you credit. You better keep your promises, man. You've been shitting the bed. This is the one good thing I'll give you, especially after bombing Syria. But that's a whole different thing. In the meantime, all right, Joe, I hope this does more. Good job. Don't fuck up.